The biggest news out of this Roger Stone indictment is that, did you guys know that his next door neighbor is Chad Johnson? J Pork's podcast. Exclusively on East Coast Radio. Mile journey begins with one step. Progressives took that step on November 6th. The journey's not over, but we took a step in the right direction.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Did you see New York 11 elected a Democrat? New York 11 is Staten Island, the most Trumpian place in New York City. Elected a Democrat. Don't try to tell me it wasn't a wave. Robert Mueller isn't the only person investigating Trump now. We have the House Intel Committee is now chaired by Adam Schiff, and they have subpoena power. And he will use it. And he will get to the bottom of this, like he's been trying to do for the last 2 years, and Devin Nunes has been stymieing him. Devin Nunes is no longer the chairman. The midnight runs to the White House are over. I made a promise to the listeners of East Coast Radio that if the Democrats did not mess up November, that if November 6th went our way, that we would have a little fun here on East Coast Radio. And if you stay tuned, I promise you this. Along with our fighting fascism and trying to save democracy, we will have a little fun. Because we earned it. Keep it locked to East Coast Radio. Remember, we got Dies in Your House at the end of the week. We got the J Pork's podcast at the beginning of the week. Every week, East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Get us on Patreon, patreon.com/JPorks, and follow us on Twitter at East Coast Radio. Let's punch fascism in the face. One podcast at a time.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived. Representing Staten Island. Staten Island was no joke.
Hey, yo! What is the word, peeps? Welcome back into another action-packed edition of the J Porks podcast. I am J Porks. With me, as always, on the other side of the glass, making sure this is a well-oiled podcast machine. Every week is the ever-popular Nobody. A band on the open, never heard of them. Don't know who that is. Never heard of that band before in my life. What goes on, peeps? What is the word? J Porks podcast. I'm back. Voice is almost at 100% here. And it is episode 258. That it is. And you know what else it is? It's the weekend of Roger Stone's indictment. Hold on, let me take a sip of my victory beverage. That's good stuff. Roger Stone has been indicted. And it's just fantastic. So, if you don't know, Roger Stone, longtime advisor to Trump. I don't even need to... I don't know if it's sad or happy or a good thing. Is it me retaining information or is it me being crazy that I can go off the top of my head and tell you everything about Roger Stone right now? Roger Stone, top Trump advisor. He actually is the one that got him to run on the reform ticket in '99 because they were trying to oust whoever was on the reform ticket before that, but that party never took off the ground. Roger Stone's been lobbying for Trump for a while. He used to lobby Washington for him for casinos. Roger Stone's a lobbyist, and he goes back to the days of Nixon. Now, there would have been a time where I would have came on here and said, Roger Stone was an advisor for Nixon, but the Nixon Institute or the Nixon Library or whatever was tweeting that Roger Stone may have been an informal scheduler for the committee to re-elect the president for Nixon, but he's not listed as an advisor, and he was never been in a formal advisor. He's not in any of the diaries. His name isn't mentioned anywhere. So the Nixon Institute or the Nixon Library felt the need to distance itself from Roger Stone. Think about how smelly of shit you've stepped in if the Nixon people need to distance themselves from you. You know what I'm saying? Just take that into consideration when you're considering this next portion. All right. So you're probably wondering, Jay, we know that Roger Stone's dirty trickster. Every bad thing you think about politics is Roger Stone. All the, dirty politics stuff that is not stuff you're proud of. It's not stuff you can brag about. You can't go to 60 Minutes afterwards and say you rat banged the opponent. Like, you can't say that. Notes on Muskie stationery. You can't go out and say that. You can't behave in that way. But Roger Stone has always been out there. And I'm not going to go over the list of things that he's done. He's got a lot of crazy stuff on his resume. And the craziest wasn't even backing Trump for president. The craziest was that time he asked a hostile foreign government to steal emails pertaining to Hillary Clinton. Now, I know what you're saying, Jay. I thought Roger Stone was talking to WikiLeaks. And WikiLeaks is not a country. WikiLeaks is an organization. WikiLeaks may have used to been an organization at one point or another that was all about open governments and stuff like that. But when WikiLeaks decided to take all the bad info about Russia and put that in its pocket, that's when WikiLeaks became a hostile foreign enemy and a puppet and an arm of the Russian government. That's all they are. All WikiLeaks is an arm of the Kremlin that is anti-American. Okay? Now, they may not be anti-press. They may be pro-free press, but they're still anti-American. Roger Stone needed to contact Julian Assange to ask him for emails. And they stole John Podesta's emails. Roger Stone was in talks to tell them, he told them to drop the emails if you can tell Assange to drop the emails on this day. Because on the day where the Access Hollywood tape was coming out, they needed to bury that. Coordinating with a hostile foreign power to influence the outcome of an election, most certainly a crime. But in the indictment, I mean, we know that it's a crime, so I don't need to break down section what of article what, why that's a crime. Elections are decided by Americans. Full stop. So you read this indictment and you're looking for any nooks and crannies and pieces and tea leaves you want to read. You just want to find out more, and you read it. Roger Stone lied to Congress under oath. It might not have been under oath, but still lying to Congress is a felony. Witness intimidation he tried to do, where he told Randy Credico, a radio host, he told him that he was going to take his dog away if Randy Credico went to Robert Mueller and told him things, because apparently Randy Credico interviewed Julian Assange for his radio show once. And because of that, Credico claims that Roger Stone told people that to get in touch with Assange, he needed to go through Credico. Credico denies that he was the middleman. But of course he's going to... I've only seen him on television, so of course he's going to deny that. Jerome Corsi is the guy that claims to have had thought about John Podesta's emails being hacked into on a plane, on vacation with his wife, just randomly, out of divine intervention. Literally divine intervention. He just said he had a thought. Both these people are liars. But anyway, the important thing in the indictment, the most important thing, is the line, not the ones that say top senior Trump campaign official directed Roger Stone to do this. It doesn't say that. It says someone directed a senior Trump official to ask Roger Stone about the WikiLeaks emails. So remember, there is a senior advisor who took an order from somebody more senior than them to tell Roger Stone to go find the emails. Now, Roger Stone was quote-unquote fired from the campaign in late 2015. That was a ruse. He was never not an informal advisor to Trump. In his entire life, Trump's whole rich life, Trump's whole fake rich life, Roger Stone has always been there, lobbying, advising, being a leech, not having any actual skills. So Stone was an informal advisor, even though he wasn't technically being paid by the Trump campaign. And that's probably the whole reason for this. The reason why he was fired was so he can get the emails and then claim that he wasn't working for the campaign. So that even if he goes to jail, the campaign doesn't have their hands dirty. Little did they know Robert Mueller was coming to town. Little did they know that all these people would start falling. Little did they know that Cohen, Manafort, Gates, Flynn, Papadopoulos, these are all people that have pleaded guilty. Or have been, pleaded guilty or have been found guilty. Manafort is Roger Stone's buddy from the 80s. They had the lobbying firm. Black Manafort, Stone, and Kelly. They were one of the first political consulting groups to work for Ronald Reagan's presidential candidacy in 1980, and would later have extensive connections to the presidential administrations of George Bush and Bill Clinton. The firm represented and lobbied U.S. Congress on behalf of numerous foreign governments and heads of state from both representative democracies and unelected dictatorships, including Mohammed Syed Baer of Somalia, Director Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines, and dictator Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, and Jonas Zamvibi of Angola. According to the Tortures Lobby, a report published by the Centers for Public Integrity, the firm received $3.3 million in the early 1990s for their work with dictators. These aren't people that are in favor of liberal democracies. These are people that want corporate America. They want corporations to run America, in a sense. These are not good people. These are not upstanding individuals that are down for making America the best it could be. Okay? Now, these guys have been doing their dirty tricks for 30, 40 years in this country. Again, let's just remember that Roger Stone has a tattoo of Richard Nixon on his back. Richard Nixon's face on his back. He loves Nixon. Okay? Now, when Stone, he loves Nixon so much that when he came out of jail the other day, I don't know if it was jail or if it was just processing paperwork for a day, but he was doing the 2 fingers up on each hand like Nixon, exactly like Nixon did. Like he thought it was funny. He was trying to give comments. I did not even hear what he said because people were chanting, "Lock him up, lock him up, lock him up." It was phenomenal. It was fantastic. Lock him up, lock him up. Speaking of lock him up in the campaign, who is the more senior official? Who is more senior than a senior Trump campaign official? There's only a couple of people it could be. The person giving the direction to tell the campaign official to go ask Stone what's up with the emails. It can only be Kushner, Don Jr., Eric, Ivanka. I mean, these are... or Trump himself. It can't... there's nobody else that it could be who would be more senior than a senior campaign official. The only thing I can think of is family. And that should show you where this investigation is going. First it was Manafort. Well, no, first it was Flynn. And it was Manafort. Well, Flynn, Papadopoulos, Manafort, Cohen. I don't think Cohen worked with the special counsel, but this has nothing to do with that. Cohen, Manafort. Now it's Stone. People are wondering, oh, why is Jared Kushner, not arrested yet? Don't worry, it's coming. I mean, I can see where this investigation's going here. The people that are the most guilty get spoken to later or not at all. Roger Stone was never asked at all by Robert Mueller to sit down for an interview. Not once, not one time. He didn't even reach out. He didn't even see if he wanted to voluntarily. A lot of people go to Mueller and they just say, listen, I'll talk to you. Sam Nunberg has spent time in front of Roger Stone's grand jury. Not Robert Mueller's grand jury. Sam Nunberg knows whose fault this is. Sam Nunberg doesn't... Sam Nunberg's the guy that came up with the wall, the using the wall in a sentence idea to make Trump remember about immigration. But also, Nunberg is somebody that Roger Stone has tried to distance himself from. And he kind of doesn't believe that Stone spoke to Assange, but he believes that Stone would lie about it. And he also believes that Roger Stone is okay with jail. Not only does he think Roger Stone's okay with going to prison, but he thinks that, well, he said Roger's the kind of guy who, quote, will do a year in prison and come out and give speeches. A year in prison? You got 7 felony counts, bro. Ain't no year in prison. Oh, well, where's the collusion? There's no collusion in the indictment. Well, collusion isn't necessarily a crime. Collusion is an act that goes down in the crime of conspiracy, in coordination, and that's what's going on. You don't 1 count of collusion. That's never going to be a word that's said. You don't actually get charged with collusion. The collusion is the conspiracy. Roger Stone colluding with WikiLeaks is Trump campaign officials colluding with Russians. Just because they put layers in between them doesn't mean it didn't happen. And I believe that Roger Stone is not talking. He's not going to say a word. He'll go to jail. I think it'll be more than a year, but I think Roger Stone was going to go to jail. He'll write a book. He will use this platform. Because guys like Paul Manafort, guys like Roger Stone, jail is inevitable for people like that. When you're in this game that long, and that's what it is, it's the game. It's just like if you sold drugs on the street. It's the game. You're in the game that long, you're on the block that long, you're gonna get got. You're gonna get touched or you're gonna get locked. And that's what happened. So you see Manafort stumbling into the courtroom with a swollen ankle and a cane and totally gray hair, looking broken and beaten. That's what you get for treating America like a battered wife all these years. I don't know if maybe battered wife was the right analogy there, but that's what you get for treating America like it's your... I don't know how they were treating it. I can't even quantify it. These people that thought that they could just get paid and play, politics and elect people, run campaigns and do shady shit. Well, you do enough shady shit, eventually. If you do enough shady shit, eventually it's going to catch up with you. And that's what happened to Stone. And that's what happened to Manafort. And that's what happened to Cohen. And you see the trend. Who's another person who spent their whole life doing shady shit? I could name one. Art of the Deal? I think not. Art of the Squeal? Roger Stone? Probably not. Isn't it weird that he called InfoWars, and because he's shilling his he needs his legal defense fund. He needs people to pay for his legal fees because, I don't know, I guess he doesn't have money even though he lives in the same neighborhood as Chad freaking Johnson, Ocho Cinco. Crazy. And by the way, people are like, oh, how'd CNN know that they were going to get raided? Did Mueller's office tip off CNN? No, CNN. This guy's been there a bunch of times already. And I may have mentioned it on Dies in Your House when we were talking about the Covington boys, but when the grand jury met on Thursday, you knew something was cracking. And I might have said by the time Jay Pork's podcast comes out, Roger Stone will be indicted. This is what happens. I do a podcast on something, and then the country totally takes another turn. The news cycle just dips and dives and thrives. And I'm stuck here holding the bag. But Roger Stone indicted is big news. And arrested at 6 a.m. in front of his house. And not being able to give the speech because they were screaming, lock him up. And being told, and the indictment stating that a senior campaign official was instructed, so somebody above a senior was instructed to check with Stone about the emails. Because they knew the Billy Bush tape was coming out. Oh, spoiler alert. I bet Steve Bannon ratted this whole operation out. We'll get to more. We'll get to the real walls of the cave when we come back after this. Hey, yo! Jay Porks here, recording my own commercials as per usual. But I am here to tell you about going to patreon.com/JPorks, and you have the opportunity to help support Least Coast Radio by becoming a Least Coast Radio head. How do you do that, you say? Well, there are 3 different tiers to choose from, where you can find yourself bonus content, bonus features from the Jay Porks podcast, from Dies in Your House, from all things Least Coast Radio. Now, what are those features? Well, they're bonus shows. They're getting shows early. They're getting exclusive artwork mailed to the address of your choosing monthly. You can interact with all the hosts here on Least Coast Radio. You can get shout-outs on the podcast. Behind the scenes stuff. That's on Dies in Your House and the Jay Porks podcast. You get them both here on Least Coast Radio. Dies in Your House is usually the primer at the end of the week. The J Porks podcast is the long show. What we do at the beginning of the week to get you going, to take in everything that happened. But I need some help. And how you can help Least Coast Radio is by following us on Twitter at Least Coast Radio, going to patreon.com/JPorks, becoming a Patreon, becoming a Least Coast Radio head. And, you know, if you don't want to do any of those things, you can smash that subscribe button on iTunes or YouTube. And, you know, you can, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt to share the podcast with your friends. So keep it locked to Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. We're here fighting fascism, saving democracy, but we're also going to have a little fun. Keep it locked. How many dollars for the wall? Somebody tell me. This is why we titled this episode Walls of the Cave. Or at least, this is why I'm saying we're titling this episode Walls of the Cave. At the moment I am recording this Walls of the Cave portion of the podcast. So, Mexico was going to pay for the wall. That was actually never a thing. Anybody that has common sense knew that was never a thing. But it was an applause line during the campaign. So Trump felt he had to at least make it look like he was trying to get Mexico to pay for a wall. In December, the Senate bipartisanly passed a bill to keep the government open without any money for a wall. Unfortunately, right-wing media trolls, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and Coulter, decided that that wasn't what they wanted. And they went on the radio and TV and social media, and they called Trump a wimp. And they bullied him into pulling the bill off the table, into pulling the bill from where it was going to get signed to saying, nope, I no longer support it. I know I mentioned this last week, but we could debate, where's Mitch? Why did he not bring the bill earlier? Why didn't he have a mind of his own? We could, and I want to. Because the thing is, how can you be a co-equal branch of government and then say, oh, we're not going to do that unless he's going to sign it? That's not a co-equal branch of government. If you want to look at how a co-equal branch of government works, please take a look at the House of Representatives. So Mexico was going to pay for the wall. Mexico was never going to pay for the wall. It was just a thing that Sam Nunberg and Roger Stone came up with to help Trump remember to talk about immigration. Then he gets into office. Suddenly, art of the deal is not so dealy. Not one brick of wall, not $1 of wall. Not $1 has been given towards the wall. Not one brick has gone up. So in December, Trump throws a hissy fit after Ann Coulter calls him a bitch. I mean, in short, that's what happened. Shuts down the government. The House passed like 10 bills to reopen individual parts of the government, to work around this. We had 800,000 federal workers miss paychecks. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say federal workers lean Republican or Democrat. That doesn't matter. They're people that lean towards work, and they go to work, and if they don't get paid, that's un-American. Full stop. Jobs, Mr. Economy didn't mind that 800,000 federal workers missed. I want to say that the FAA grounding flights at LaGuardia. Now people go, they weren't grounded, they were delayed. Did they go off on time? Did they fly their regular schedule, or did they not because of a wall? Okay, they did not fly their regular schedule because of a wall. That's what happened. A wall that nobody wants, a wall that we don't need. I can go over the immoralities of a wall. Every country that has ever had a wall has taken the wall down, with the exception of China. But, you know, China doesn't do things like every other country does things. They don't do things like every other superpower does. So was it the FAA? Was it planes randomly flying in the air with no place to land that made Trump say, you know what, I'll just open it up? No. Was it, the morning of the FBI raids of Roger Stone's house and the arrest and indictment? I believe that had part of it. But you know what the biggest thing is? And I forget who it was on Chris Hayes last night. If you're a parent, you know this works. If you want to get your child to behave, what do? You take away his television. That's what you do. You take it away. Now, listen, 800,000 federal workers who might lean Republican, that doesn't affect the GOP. They don't care about that. Trump doesn't care about any of that. But if you take away his TV time, his State of the Union, hashtag SOTU. By the way, whenever the State of the Union happens, instead of using the hashtag SOTU, we should use the hashtag STFU. Because there's nothing that this guy is going to say that A, matters, that B, anybody cares about, that C, is consequential to anything. Nancy Pelosi dog walked this guy. She said, I'd suggest that you don't do the State of the Union. He said, well, I'm doing it anyway. She said, yeah, you're not doing it here. She's like, that's her prerogative. Who in the White House spelled out prerogative for Trump? Did he put it in capital letters? Why is shutdown in capitals? Like, when I do a hashtag Trump shutdown, it's in caps, but, like, the shutdown isn't it's not a noun. Like, it's an action. Shutdown. I mean, so, like, who told him prerogative? Because he doesn't do English very well. Oh, it's her prerogative. Roger Stone gets locked. All of a sudden, he's over there. Well, we're going to reopen the government. Good. It's not stopping any of the... And you know what the funniest thing about this is? Well, not funny. People not getting paid is not funny. So let me just say that. But this week, earlier in the week, the FBI they released a report about how they're not able to pay, witnesses. They don't have money. That a lot of this counterintelligence stuff is not getting done during the shutdown. Courts are going to slow up. Indictments are going to stop. The grand jury, they don't have money to pay the grand jury. So then you see, like, frog-faced troll in the White House probably thinking, they're going to stop this investigation. This is going to stymie the investigation. Unfortunately, the FBI, who on Friday morning at 6 a.m. were still affected by the shutdown and were not getting paid. Those FBI field agents, they were volunteers as they went into Roger Stone's house to obtain this criminal who has been living in society free way too long. Mr. Whitehead Willy Wonka. He called Alex Jones from the prison, not prison, it was like processing. Called Alex Jones because he was on Alex Jones, and I think Daniel Dale was on Twitter, like, cataloging it, like, cataloging it, like, telling us what's happening, and then I saw him on the court steps later. So, this whole shutdown for a wall that nobody needs is actually just a delay tactic. And I really think, we're halfway through this. And I really think the point that what they're trying to do in Washington, in this fascist administration, in the rise of a fascist regime in our country. What they're trying to do is just delay until Inauguration Day 2020, or is it 2021? I'm not even sure. And then it's going to be Pardon City. Manafort, Stone. So the shutdown was just a 35-day, we're going to try to pause this, which didn't work. But you know what did get paused? The FDA checking foods. They didn't do all their food inspections. Now, TSA, like the South Park episode about it is funny. And yeah, you know, we can talk about our, you know, going through the airport, going through airport security, how much that sucks, and how those people aren't necessarily, you know, the most joyful of people. Sometimes they're not. They don't have the best job in the world, you know? Everyone's getting on planes and going away. And they're sitting there in the terminal not going anywhere. But they have to get searched and treated like the same people that are going and going away. You know? Like the other day when we delivered chips to this army base. Like, you know? I just felt like everyone was looking at me like I don't belong there, you know? We get the truck, whatever. Whack. These TSA employees were calling out at a percentage that was double, triple what it was this time last year, as they compare notes. Food and Drug Administration, not checking things. Now imagine if you're law enforcement. And imagine, yeah, you see that? I'm on the side with law enforcement, imagine. Now, imagine you're law enforcement. And you've just, you know, you've spent the last however long you've been working the beat. You know, however long you've been working the specific beat you're on now, whether it's this block, this neighborhood, this avenue, whatever it is. Let's just say that you've worked hard working with community leaders and stuff and other officers and, you know, elders and stuff. And let's just say you've been in a community that has had a drug problem in the past. And let's just say you put in hard work and, you know, you put in every hour of every day to try to reduce crime and drugs in this neighborhood. And now you're going to start to see an influx of drugs in your neighborhood. Why is that? Is that because there are more criminals? No. It's because, whether you like it or not, TSA has a job. And their job is to look through packages and to make sure that you're not bringing illegal stuff on planes and traveling with it, right? When you have disenfranchised people, when you have people that aren't getting paid, when you have people that are going to work and not knowing when they're going to get paid. If you have people going to work and saying, oh, if I get out at 3, I can do my Uber shift. Those people are going to be less inclined to have the sense of urgency. Now, I'm not saying that they're letting bombs on planes or anything, but I'm saying that if they smell some bud, they're not necessarily going to be that inclined to do that much of a search because they don't really care. Because the government is not paying them. Was not paying them. In what world do you go to work and not get paid? In what world do you think that the grocery store is going to float you groceries? What kind of Looney Tunes Society, Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd stuff are we running here? In all seriousness. Oh, someone's late on their mortgage, they can just call the bank. What? Wilbur Ross says they shouldn't be going to food banks. They got enough money to last. How do you know? You don't know how much money anybody has. You don't know how much time anybody has to last unless you've been in their shoes. People like Wilbur Ross, Donald Trump, they don't know shit about shit. They've never struggled. Never. Not 1 second in their life have they struggled. You can't tell me you sympathize with working class people. What about all those blue-collar people that voted for Trump? I know there are a lot of them. Not as many that voted for Hillary Clinton, but there's a lot of them. How many people voted for Trump because of jobs? And how many of those people had a job, a federal job, that was guaranteed to not go away? It wasn't like they, worked in the farms and, they need the wall to protect from immigrants coming and making an honest living. No, it's not that. They voted for Trump. Gerbs. And what happened? They went to their job. Their check said $0. You got swindled. How many people need to get screwed before this is an orgy? How many? How many races and creeds need to get screwed before this is a full-blown sex party? That's all I want to know. I know my analogies aren't very on point, but you shut down the government. And then when your TV got taken away, you capitulated. And the right-wing media, Limbaugh, Coulter, they still don't like it. They have the same comments today that they had in December. What's the difference? The difference is that Trump knows that he can't win a battle with Nancy Pelosi. Someone call Seth Moulton and Max Rose and ask them if they were the Speaker of the House, how many days it would have taken them to capitulate to Trump? 6? 7? This is why Nancy Pelosi's the leader. This is why she's the Speaker. Because of things like this. And you can't for 1 second think that, anyone else as Speaker would have been able to keep the Democrats unified in this front. But she did. There wasn't a group of, moderate Democrats that went to the White House and came out and said, oh, well, we should support them. None of that. Now, money for border security, that could most certainly be taken care of. Because, listen, there are criminals, people say, oh, well, you got walls on your house. I get walls in my house to keep bad guys away. That's not the same, right? You don't keep walls on your house to keep bad guys away. You have walls on your house to control the climate inside of your house and to stop rain from coming in and winds. When walls were invented, it wasn't to keep people out. That's not what it was. Teepees and stuff. This is to keep wind and rain and to keep you dry. That's what your house is. So don't tell me, oh, I don't have walls on my house. I have walls on my house. Keep bad guys out. If you want to keep bad guys out, here's what you do. You ready? You decide to invest in border security. Border security, meaning like how El Chapo was going through tunnels. Yeah, you get some x-ray stuff to make sure that we're not having tunnels. You get some technology to help inspect things at legal ports of entry. And you get more judges to go down to the border so we can have more people applying for asylum simultaneously. We need more judges down there so we can have more cases. So if you think that these people are criminals, get more judges down there so you can decide to send them home. And you need money for humanitarian aid. Because I don't care how many people on the other side of that wall are, going to be classified as criminals by the U.S. government. They're still humans. And they're still out there. I don't see food. You know what I see? I see Border Patrol agents pouring out buckets of water that were left for other migrants. That's disgusting. We have a humanitarian crisis at the border. We have a humanitarian crisis at the border, and it needs to be addressed. Not with bricks or steel slats or a barrier. This is the 21st century, okay? The world is smaller now. We have the internet. Physical barriers are not going to stop anybody. You know what physical barriers do? They just get people more volatile and make people want to get over it more. I.e., me with any authority figure. Oh, you can't do that. Word? I can't? Why? Who says I can't? Oh, right. And that's why And that's why I don't have a real job right now, because I don't respect my authority. So, walls of the cave. That's what it is. He caved. He capitulated. And now we're hoping to just run out the clock here. I'm torn between, like, running out the clock on Trump and impeaching him. I'm not a politician. I don't want to do any of it for political reasons. You know? I think if we should impeach somebody, if somebody's worthy of impeachment, they should be impeached. Then again, the watching cable news side of me, 24 hours a day, says, you know, if we now, again, I know that this isn't, you know, if we impeach him and they don't convict him in the Senate, he's just a martyr and he gets stronger, you know, and his poll numbers go up. But at the same time, should I care about that? Or should I care about the future of my country? I think the future of the country is more important than poll numbers. And there's no saying that you can't be impeached twice. Is there? I don't know. So, like, we got a better path to the Senate in 2020. I know we're going to lose some seats because whoever wins the primary is going to not be a senator anymore. But, like, I don't think there's any way that this guy could survive. I barely think he's going to make the 18 months that are left, or however many months are left. I don't even know. Really, I'm just hiding in a fetal position praying for this to be over. That's really all I'm doing. All right. The border. Walls of the cave. Huh. Jay Porks here. And I know I've been a little busy on this East Coast radio stuff, talking about resist, remove, and recreational. But I gotta tell you about one more thing. You should be a East Coast Radiohead. That's right. And you can become a East Coast Radiohead just by going to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the offers we have there. There's a low tier, a middle tier, and a high tier. All of those get you bonus content, exclusive personalized artwork, and even a chance to interact with me on a personal level over the phone. We could talk about what's going on in this podcast. We could talk about how we are going to flip these seats blue in November. And we are going to vote like this is our final election, because it might be. Patreon.com/JPorks. Become a East Coast Radiohead and join the resistance. And we are back. Jay Porks Podcast, episode 258, Walls of the Cave. Let's just continue on here. Momentum is going. Let's talk a little bit about momentum. The Democratic Party, since November 2016, has had a goal. Now, the main goal was grassroots movements, bringing non-voters into the fold, people that wouldn't normally vote, disenfranchised. Now, that doesn't mean turned away at polls necessarily. We got a lot of millennials, don't think their vote matters. And in turn, if they see the top of the ticket and people that they don't feel a need to vote for, they don't necessarily understand the ramifications of the bottom half of the ticket, the bottom rest of the ticket. Like, those local elections might probably, most likely, are more important than the actual general election that happens once every 4 years. You need to stay focused on what's going on in your community and who's representing you, because you can't complain and say things like, oh, all politicians are the same, if you didn't go and vote for one of those politicians. What you do is you vote for somebody, and everybody, senators, congressmen, legislators, legislative people, they all have like a scorecard because you voted for them. So anything they vote for in Congress and state senate, whatever it is, anything they vote for is a matter of public record, right? And you can see what they've done for you. And then in 2 years or whatever, you can decide if this person is getting your vote again. You just saw something on Staten Island where I've been talking about it for months. It's so Republican all the time. Been Republican forever. It's the only only one of the 5 boroughs of New York City that went for Trump. A lot of police officers live here. A lot of conservative minds live here. And it took a groundswell effort, but we elected, New York 11, elected a guy by the name of Max Rose, who ran as a Democrat on the Democratic side of the ticket. And then got to Congress and decided not to support Pelosi and didn't vote for her and is acting like a moderate. So, in, a year and a half, 2 years, about 20 months or so, when he's up for re-election, I will be reassessing, I will look at that if somebody's going to primary him on the Democratic side. Because we got a lot of new Congress people, congresswomen, congressmen, feel that primarying, your people in your same party isn't necessarily a bad thing. I.e., AOC primarying Joe Crowley and winning. But in the Democratic Party, so what we did was we expanded and we got a wave going for 2018, and the midterm elections saw the Democrats take 40 seats in the House, reclaiming control of a chamber of Congress, the chamber of Congress, a branch, whatever. There's the House, the Senate, and the executive. We got the House back, which is more of a reflection of how the country is feeling overall vote-wise, because the House of Representatives is like a popular vote thing, and I believe that there was a total of like 9 million more votes for Democratic candidates than there was Republicans overall combined. So all that momentum and all of that, we got some really good, and listen, I'm not excited to see people each other's heads off and weaken each other, but at the same time, I'm excited that of the people that announced that they're running for president so far, besides Tulsi Gabbard, who we're not even going to discuss on this podcast. There is no reason to even discuss that Putin-loving person. There is no need for that in the Democratic Party, and I have no idea why she'd run. But I know why she would run. She's got backing from a big country. The only problem is it's not America. But of the people, we got Elizabeth Warren, who I like Elizabeth Warren. I don't care that she took the DNA test. I don't care about that. I don't care about Hillary Clinton sending emails. None of those things have anything to do with the ability of someone to govern. Elizabeth Warren's all about taking down big banks and fighting for the little guy. I like it. Let's go. We had... Who else? Who's the other guy? Kirsten Gillibrand. I know that there's somebody else I'm missing. I wanted to go to Gillibrand third. Kirsten Gillibrand. Now, again, I'm not allowed to dislike Kirsten Gillibrand because A, she's from my state. B, if you dislike Kirsten Gillibrand, then people think that you're like sticking up for Al Franken in some sort of way. And they think that if you don't like Kirsten Gillibrand, that somehow you're against the Me Too movement and stuff like that, which is not at all the case. I just don't like guns, and Kirsten Gillibrand does. And she did, and she had a high grade from the NRA until she visited some neighborhood in the Bronx or whatever. And I love that. I love that a politician from upstate doesn't have issues with guns until they visit the inner city. Then they're like, oh man, we need gun control. But whatever. She's for a lot of things I'm for. So I'm down with it. Cool. If she's at the top of the ticket, whatever. I'm down. I'm not going to not go. I'm not voting. None of these people do anything for me. I wouldn't do that. Julian Castro's the other guy, the mayor of San Antonio. Good guy. Like him. Peter Buttigieg. Peter Buttigieg was on Chris Hayes the other day, and I gotta be honest, haven't heard of this guy, don't know who he is, but he had good answers for every question that was asked. He had amazing answers, and he was, he's somebody who I think, has a future in this Democratic Party for sure. I believe he's an openly gay, not sure if he's a mayor of a town, maybe the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. It's Mike Pence's state. And he's a liberal, openly gay, served in the military, millennial. Checked all the boxes. So I don't mind him. But, William Castro, Gillibrand, and Michael Steele called him booty juice. So that's it. Kamala Harris is my favorite. That's the one I want. Kamala Harris is the person I want to be president of the United States. Ability to lead. There's no way people can call her like one of these bleeding heart liberals who doesn't believe in prison. She was a prosecutor. She believes in the rule of law. And listen, I don't get this whole... this is going to sound crazy coming from me. But bear with me. I don't get the whole hatred for, police. The whole hatred for law enforcement. Like how people hate the FBI now. Republicans are like the party of law and order until they're getting investigated. Then it's like, oh, crooked cops. Just like people all the time would say, oh, you got to respect the police. But then if they get pulled over, they say, oh, why can't this person just worry about solving real crimes? It's always respect people until you're the one in trouble. Here's my deal. I got no intentions on breaking the law. My beefs with laws is with Congress and why they should be changed so I could no longer be a criminal. Hence me talking about down ballot local elections every week on my podcast, trying to get the word out there and use my only weapon, my voice, to get laws changed. So I don't have, so when I see police, I don't have to have my heart drop into my or my heart jump up into my throat, whatever, and start getting goosebumps and getting scared and having an anxiety attack and getting heart palpitations. The fear of the authoritarian state. I have that. I want it to stop. And it is going to stop. Regular cops don't care about the things I'm doing. Regular cops don't care that I may or may not be recreationally using marijuana at some point or another. I'm in my house. I'm not out on the street. I'm not causing any trouble. So, people try to, Kamala Harris is a cop, so how about that? She's got the prosecutor. She's down with everybody getting health care. None of her ideas are radical, down for Congress changing the marijuana laws. Prison reform, voting rights, equal rights. She's a woman. She's ethnic. Boom, boom, boom. She's not, she's, if you have ageism issues, which I don't when it comes to politicians, but if you, depends. Depends on how their faculties are. But if you, want to say, well, Hillary was old, this and that. Well, Kamala Harris is young. Served in the Senate 2 years. California. There's big money in California. And I believe their primary is early. And that is going to matter a lot. So of the major players so far who have announced, the power rankings, and I should really do this every week, the power rankings would go Harris, Warren, Gillibrand. That's basically the top three there. As of right now. But Twitter's a-buzzing. Things are happening. There's that lighthouse in Vermont is blinking on and off. Sending the burn signal. And I beg you, America. And first of all, let me just say that I love my girlfriend and she's the best. And I'm sorry that this next 10 minutes of the podcast is going to be about this. But Bernie Sanders is going to announce that he's going to run for 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, that is something that America does not need at all right now. It was bad enough that before that was rumbling, we had rumblings of Howard Schultz is thinking about running as an independent, Ralph Nader style, to fuck this up, just like 2000. I was just watching Recount too. He's gonna Ralph Nader this shit. Schultzy boy. Schultz, man. I like Starbucks coffee, man. I really do. And I like everything Starbucks stands for besides when they kick those people out of Starbucks. I like that they let people use the bathroom. You know? I like that they let you loiter. I like that they have free Wi-Fi and they let you charge stuff. And they don't really look twice at me when I'm stealing Splenda. But we do not need Howard Schultz, businessman, running for higher office. And if he wants to run, get in the Democratic primary. Pause on that for a second. Bernie Sanders, who is an independent, is going to hop into the Democratic primary. How bad is this country right now as a direct result of Bernie Sanders? It's bad. Without Bernie Sanders, like, Bernie Sanders is as culpable to this election as white supremacists, as Russian hackers, as WikiLeaks, Vladimir Putin, and Julian Assange. He is exactly what we don't need in the Democratic field. We don't need old white men. And if you want to have old white men, why don't you do this? Have a separate primary. Have the old white guy primary. One old white guy gets into the Democratic primary. You'll have Biden, Bernie, and Bloomberg. They can fight each other, and then the winner of that can come into the primary. We can't have these old white men getting on stage and representing the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has moved away from old white men. And we need to stop with this. Oh, Jay, it's real. And this is really good. This is like some next level mind voodoo shit that these people have. Well, Jay, it's not that the candidate has to be diverse. They need to have the diversity of thought. The diversity of, I'm sorry. That never worked. That's something that companies do to try to get around hiring women and colored people. That's a phrase like reverse racism. A phrase that's not real. Diversity of thought. I don't care what white guy, how diverse his thoughts are. It doesn't matter. Because he's never been a black kid in the hood. He's never been a struggling mother, single mother, person of color living in the projects, living in rent-controlled house. Never been that. You've always been an old white man. Now, well, you haven't always been an old white man. At one point, you were a young white man and a middle-aged white man. Now you're an old white man. But the point is that these people, and listen, I'm not saying that they can't sympathize and not have empathy towards people and not have the ability to understand what's going on, but not on the level that somebody like Kamala Harris understands, not on the level of somebody like even Elizabeth Warren has. It's diversity of thought. Now, I don't care what you think. What you think you believe. Now, I've been following, you heard the top, like, this Russia thing, I've been paying a lot of attention to it. And one of the main factors of this being able to work, this slow-moving coup, if you will, one of the ways Russia was able to annex the United States was by having a candidate that drew votes away from Hillary Clinton. That was number one. You needed an independent. You needed a Gary Johnson and a Jill Stein. And you needed somebody in the Democratic field who would take away, who would disenfranchise voters when they didn't win the primary. And listen, Bernie Sanders doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders gets up there and tells his clan to go harass women and harass people of color. into voting for someone like Bernie Sanders. But during the campaign, when Hillary Clinton was really getting trashed by Bernie insiders, Bernie did nothing to discourage that. He never once said, guys, we gotta be on a moral high ground here. When they go low, we go high. He never once did that. And he's got a voting record. I spoke about voting records a little while ago. He's got a voting record. You can check crime bill, Brady bill. You can check all of this. The legislation to be able to sue gun owners, didn't vote for. Check his record. He found religion in 2016 when Tad Devine became his campaign manager. And remember, who's Tad Devine's best friend? Paul Manafort. Where's Paul Manafort? In jail. Now, I'm not saying, I didn't see any emails that CC'd Tad Devine with the Russian collusion thing. But I'm fairly certain that it was the plan all along for Manafort. Manafort knew this would work when he knew that there was another candidate there. And he was able to use his skills, his lobbying politician skills. Because let's face it, Paul Manafort does have a talent. He can get people elected. He just never does it the right way. He never does it a legal, law-abiding way that people can be proud of. He does the under-the-table way. So when his boy Tad Devine had the opportunity to take Bernie Sanders' campaign on, and he was on Trump's campaign, it wasn't like, hey, friendly competition. This'll be fun. Paul Manafort was like, he's going to try everything he could to win, just like I am. And we're both going to be destroying Hillary Clinton. And if Bernie Sanders is able to capture this nomination, the FBI is investigating his wife anyway. You know, Bernie Sanders is looking for his fourth home. All right, I don't know if that's really true, but it's worth Googling. It's worth Googling. Right? Is it not worth Googling? These Our Revolution people are thugs, okay? And they are backed by a lot of trolls on social media who are Russian cutouts. 9 followers, unverified, following 12, egg picture, maybe an American flag picture. People that do nothing besides try to trash the Democratic Party. And that's what Bernie Sanders does. You sit there and Bernie Sanders talks about transforming the Democratic Party, yada, yada, yada. He hates the party, the way they do things. But then when it comes primary season, he always runs as a Democrat to try to be president. Why can't he run as an independent? Don't run at all. But, I mean, why are you all over the Democrats, Thunder? Run as a Republican. Who cares? What does it matter? If everyone's independent anyway, right? Everyone you talk to, I'm not really affiliated with a political party. Yeah, that's fucking bullshit. You know it. I know it. I'm so sick of these people. These independents. There are no independents. You have thoughts. You know what I'm saying? You're not just a blank canvas walking around being influenced by the way the wind takes you. You have thoughts. You have needs. You have wants. You have a life. You have things in your life that make you the way you are. That make you conservative or liberal. Whole living on the fence stuff. So anyway, the main point of this back half of the podcast is that Bernie Sanders is going to announce that he's running for president soon. And we need to really block out this noise and cannot even let, listen, now we know, okay? We all know now. We all know that Russia was very happy to back Bernie Sanders to an extent. Okay? So we know that, and no matter what he says, we have to realize, okay, no matter what this guy says, A, he has no chance of winning. Zero, never win. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care. I don't care how many Republicans and independents say that they would vote, libertarians say that they would vote for Bernie Sanders. That's one of those lies you tell to save face. There's no way that these people with money are going into a voting booth and voting for Bernie Sanders, the guy that literally wants rich people to just throw their money out. I'm liberal. No one's that liberal. If you're that liberal, you're a liar. So we know it, and we understand that this guy cannot get near. Why would he be on the debate stage? He's always an independent. He's an independent, and then he registers as a Democrat to run for president, uses DNC resources, and then trashes the party afterwards, and goes back to being an independent. We don't need that. We have a united party around women and people of color who have been dragging liberals and Democrats over the finish line. We're not going to have this. Biden, Bernie, Bloomberg, bye. We don't need that. And if you want to sit there and say, oh, well, Jay, those are the only people that can beat Trump. Listen, if those are the only people that can beat Trump, then our country is in worse shape than I thought it was in, okay? Bloomberg was the mayor of New York for 3 terms. I know you're thinking that you're only allowed to be mayor for 2 terms. You are right, but he changed the rules. And I'm fairly sure he switched parties 2 or 3 times. I'm not sure if he was a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent, or just a Democrat, independent, and then a Democrat again, or the reverse. But he changed parties multiple times. He's a fucking chameleon. People like Bloomberg and Tom Steyer and Howard Schultz should be backing whoever wins the Democratic primary. That's what they should be doing. And if you want to sit there and say, oh, well, Jay, the problem with, if you don't like Bernie Sanders, why do you like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Bernie Sanders supports her. Yeah, and so what? That was one election. She's gonna vote, and she's got a mind of her own. Do you think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is calling Bernie Sanders and Our Revolution to ask what she should say at a press conference? You know what I'm saying? Get it together, man. Kamala Harris 2020. It's about time. For the people. Not for anyone else. For the people. Before this turns into America Incorporated. With that, I'm outie. But before I get on outie, let me give you the list of websites you need to go to help keep me in business. First of all, there's ContentConfessions.com. That's where you get all your live music, news, and reviews. For the fans, by the fans. If you ever wanted to maybe get the podcast early, get some artwork sent to your house, maybe even talk to me on the phone, have some input on the podcast. If you ever wanted to do that, maybe come up with titles, topics, segments, exclusive bonus content. If you ever wanted any of that stuff, I mean, there's several stuff that we're offering at the Patreon, patreon.com/JPorks. Become a East Coast Radiohead. There are 3 tiers, level 1, 2, and 3. You can check it out and tell me what you think and sign up so you can get the podcast a day early. Like, for instance, talked about the Covington Catholic School kids on Friday. You could have got that on Thursday if you were a East Coast Radiohead. So keep it locked. Patreon.com/JPorks. Let me know what you think. EastCoastRadio.weebly.com. It's going to be the new homepage. Let me know what you think of that. I know I have a lot of... I ask for your opinion a lot because I care about you guys. And I want you guys to enjoy what I'm giving you. And the only way for you guys to enjoy it is to give me feedback. So I ask for it. Follow me on Twitter @JPorks. Tweet at me. Say hi. I got no friends. Right? Right? What else? We're good. All right. Till next week. Wacky Weed and Warren Zevon. Resist. Remove. Fight for recreational.